friends.
Hey.
Welcome back. How was your week?
Good. Actually, it was great. We had sun. We had like summer. We had like 3 days of summer, like summer preview. Well, it's not even really summer preview because summer's gonna be way hotter. But amazing.
Yeah, it was nice.
A little bit of brain fog, I think, from the sunshine high, but today's been a little rough.
Sorry. Yeah, we decided with the sunshine to do a bonfire, and I'm horribly allergic to smoke. And apparently my girls are too, because within like 6 hours of having the bonfire, all of us massive congestion. So it's been a lot of like Benadryl and kind of clean out the sinuses, lots of water. So if you don't notice already, different beverage. Well, you might not be able to tell right now what this is. A little bit different time of day. We went to record this morning, and first, there's a comedy of errors. First, Patty managed to dump her mic into her tea, and then
hot tea.
Yeah, and then we started recording with my mics that weren't charged because we haven't used them in forever, and they died like 5 minutes in, so we had to wait and charge. So here we are, the end of the day. So this is the 24-hours edition, I guess. Yeah. So if you don't know who we are, let's start with introducing ourselves. We're the rest of We are the Rest of Girls, and we are a mother-daughter duo. We do all things home decor and intentional living and just creating beautiful spaces and beautiful memories. So I am Katie, the daughter of the mother-daughter duo.
And I am Patty, the mother of the mother-daughter duo.
So it's nice to meet you guys. Say hello in the comments. If this is your first time, go ahead and give us a shout out, a hello. We're so excited you're joining us. And if you enjoy these chats, then go ahead and hit subscribe, like all the things, share it. Once we get to 50, we're actually going to change this format to going live on Saturday mornings. So it's a lot more fun. We get to just hang out and chat with you guys about life and living, intentional living and creative things. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to when that day comes. But until then, we'll continue to do these chats. So, we mentioned last week that this week's topic was going to be
when we almost quit. Yeah. So we had a shop. We had a shop once upon a time, and
we had just expanded into a new space. It was doing well, but we'd expanded to a new space. It's about 3 times-ish the square footage for just the like retail floor, and then we had more in the back. So obviously rent went way up. It was a smoky summer, so it'd been a little bit lean. But we moved in at the beginning of summer, and we put in, it was concrete. So we just cleaned the floors. I put in those gorgeous vinyl plank flooring. Oh, it's beautiful. I'll have to see if I can find pictures to drop up here, since we can still do that. I'm not live.
Yeah.
But yeah, we put down that flooring, and then we had late summer. There was a crazy
rainstorm. I think it might have been. It was September. It was actually September. I don't know if fall had hit yet, but it was September, and we were closed Mondays.
And
I
lived above the shop, and I was about 8 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant, 8 months,
and it had. So I had been in. Typically, I would come in on Mondays, and I did a lot of behind the scenes things, pricing, rearranging, and stands out in my memory because I had spent the whole day on linens. We had this huge influx of linens, and I had spent the whole day ironing and creating a whole new display area, and had got all these priced and ready to go, and left, and it had been raining in the afternoon, and I think it might have been raining all day, really, but
just drizzling. Which for Washington is not.
Yeah, it picked up speed, and I went on home, and it was like just downpouring, and then I got the call.
Yeah. So I was upstairs. We lived in the apartment above the shop, and I was upstairs. We had family over for dinner, and we needed more plates. We were notorious for raiding. We had like a shelf that had like old dishes that you could buy for like $1 or whatever. We were notorious for raiding that when we had company and ran short. We would go steal a couple and then wash them and put them back. And so I went down, and so we went down the stairs, and we went through the garage into the shop through the back, and it was about a foot step from the hallway to the garage. And I went to open the door, and that's when I realized there was water almost to that hallway level. And I realized, oh my gosh, like, we're flooding. So I yelled, we're flooding, like, call mom. And I go in the shop, like, again, I'm big and pregnant, and I'm running through the shop, and it was that deep from the front of the store to the back of the store. Basically, the sewer drains had a clog or something. But storm drain. Sorry,
It wasn't sewer, but
that would have been 1,000% worse. Let's just be honest. That would have been that.
we would have just lit a
That would have been the
match
end.
and walked away.
That would have been the end, and it would have burned well. No, it was storm drains, and they basically backed up into ours. So it was bubbling up out of our store drain, our alley, like our garage driveway to our garage was like this, and our storm drain is at the bottom. And so it was bubbling up and just going straight in the garage, and then coming out the front of the store. And so
It was kind of the perfect storm. It was the way the alley had been built up, so the driveway sloped, and the storm drain was there, and there was nowhere. It was overwhelmed by the water, and so it was kind of a freak thing, and I just remember that water like flowing out the front door.
It was a river.
It was crazy.
So I went in. So I went, instead of going through the garage, I went around the building and came through the front door. And the power panel was like right on the right side of the building, inside the front door. So I went in and I turned off the power, like the mains, and we started just, I mean, it's kind of a blur, but I mean, it was it was trying to get stuff out and rescue what we could.
And it's one of those surreal things because, typically when, you start experiencing a flood in your house, it's like, you're trying to turn off the water and there was no stopping this.
Right.
It was just continuing to come. But,
and it wasn't either like if you're flooding from a river flooding.
Yeah.
You have to escape the danger. Like,
yeah.
we didn't need to leave.
Yeah.
It was just there watching waters just
roll through all of our stuff. And so we were trying to get stuff to high ground, and fire department came, firemen were there.
They were begging me desperately to not wade barefoot, pregnant. But like, if you've owned a small business, that is your baby.
Yeah.
And like, you're not thinking straight in the moment. So I'm in there like, we're getting stuff on high ground, and I mean, just huge sections of wet plank flooring that we just spent thousands of dollars on. We're just floating.
And you're walking,
and it's like, just yeah. And praise God, in all the situations, there were people who were disappointing, for sure. There was people who I feel like should have taken some responsibility who didn't. And we could focus on that. But I choose to focus on the people who did show up. We had friends show up. My favorite customers showed up. My favorite quote was my sister-in-law, who was, 11 or 12 at the time. And she just knew I was so upset. And she's trying to cheer me up. She's like, at least the water's nice, cool and refreshing. So funny. But, and a fellow business owner who owned a building up on the corner, so half a block away.
Property that was just sitting vacant. They hadn't leased it out to someone.
They said, we'll come unlock our doors, put all your stuff in there. Because we had stuff on the street, and just there was nowhere for anything to go. And so we moved everything up there. And in the aftermath, we almost quit because there was a lot of money lost. There was a lot of inventory we had lost that couldn't be recovered.
And we had to close for almost 6 weeks.
Almost 6 weeks. And praise God, that same people said that rent-free we could open our doors and do business, which is a risk that they took. Because if anything happened, like, that's on them. It's their property. So they let us open our doors, and we did a few. You couldn't do much because, I mean, it was just pals and stuff. Yeah. We did a little bit of business. People were very supportive. And it took a long time to
in all this we were so at that point in time
that's why I'm like leaning into you, is because the sun is
at that point in time our highest sales day was it it was the annual like town community. It was called Railroad Days,
Yeah.
and that was like that was our super high selling day, and we were looming in on that. And so our goal was to get our doors reopened by then, because we thought if we can make
Start
it to
making
that, then that'll like give us like a little jump start. And but it was
hard. It was so much work, and it was so disheartening to be thrown away. Dealing with antiques and home decor. I mean, we had vintage paper goods, like vintage books, antique sheet music, linens, the things like the dishes and the metals and stuff. You can wash it,
right.
but there was a lot that we just had
And
to
there
throw
was
away.
there was a lot that was on high ground, right? It's just the things that we had in baskets and on the floor,
and our beautiful floor.
But yeah, it's like with what the water flowing through, it flowed
through.
Flowed. It doesn't feel right, but it's the right word. There was things that we just had to just say, it's just got to go.
There's a good to go. It was a lot of work. So I would say it was really hard, and it was really rough. And there wasn't the last. There was definitely. I remember we did one Facebook Live. So with our business, we did lives a lot. We did coffee with the rest of the girls. We'd hang out and chat like we're doing now. We did live sales. Excuse me. And so lives were kind of our thing back then, but it was on Facebook. And so we went live just kind of tearfully saying, guys, like, we're near the end of the road. We don't have enough money to pay our bills, and this might be it for us. And I think that the lessons I learned through all of those for me was first, trust your community. It's easy to be really independent. I grew up very fiercely independent. It was the Irish in us that made us just ridiculously independent and wouldn't ask for help and wouldn't even accept it, unless we were absolutely desperate. But the way people came and showed up and, helped us clear out that building and helped us in the space and helped us rebuild the shop and then supported us financially.
And some of those people that showed up in that season showed up like seemingly out of nowhere, and they became dear friends. Not just because of their support, but just it gave us an opportunity to know them on a deeper level. It's getting so bad.
It's coming farther and farther, and we're running out of ledge in the doorway of my school. I think just trusting your community and letting people in. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to admit that you need help, but the beauty that came from that, like you said, the people who we got to know on a deeper level,
people were showing up. I remember for months people were showing up with, I don't know if you can use these things, but donating things to us. And that was never really our thing. We went out and found.
We didn't ask for
it. We went out and found our treasures and bought them.
And it was nice stuff too.
Yeah. And people were bringing us things. People were showing up, to support.
Shopping, they were buying gift cards. And all of that. Oh man, it was humbling. It was so hard, but it was so worth it because it was beautiful. Those relationships, those memories, those people, even as lives shift, I think many of them, having moved away, are not really a part of my life anymore. Actively, I still think of them fondly. I still treasure that time, and I treasure the community we found there. I think that that would be one big takeaway I had. What would be one of yours?
I guess it's it's like how I've approached so many things in my life is just not giving up, even though it felt like we were going to have to. We just kind of kept forging on. We didn't have a clear sign from God that this is it. I've closed this door. I've flooded your store and I'm closing it.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that at all. And so we just kind of kept taking those steps forward. So for me, I think it was just continuing to build that faith, um, to just keep, because this was all unplanned, unknown territory to us. It was never on our radar to open a shop and man a shop and do all the things. So we were kind of just flying blind, but it was God just kept opening these doors. And so we just kept moving forward. And so that was a big takeaway for me, is just that, and I still carry that with me, with hard things, and you don't see how it could possibly work out, and that happened in 2018, and that shop did not close its doors until 2024.
Yeah,
and that was not because I had to. That was because I chose to, because of my life circumstances changing. So, yeah.
Well, I think, and I was actually literally just thinking that thought of the timeline, because I was thinking I have a friend whose marriage is struggling, and one piece of advice I gave her was just that the sweetness comes after the time. I loved my husband deeply when we got married. We had a really rough season the first couple of years. By the time kid number 2 rolled around, I was ready for divorce. I was done. I wanted out. And the only thing that kept me married was that I'd promised, I'd like to say it was, I promised God I wouldn't do this, but it wasn't. It was, I didn't want for my kids. I'd seen my nieces and nephews suffer the negative effects of divorce, and I didn't want that for my kids. And so I stuck it out. And that's the only reason I didn't file, but I was miserable, and our marriage was horrible. And, God grew me, and he grew my husband, and we're at, praise God, we're at 14 years this year. And it's so sweet. But the amount of trust you have in someone you've been with for 14 years, and I know, there are horror stories of people who've been married for 20 years, and their husband steps out on them, or their wife, or, it happens. But when you have two people trying to honor the Lord in the marriage, after time, you trust them so much more. It just becomes sweeter. You learn to work together. You anticipate where they're going to fail, and you meet that need, and they anticipate where you're going to fail, and they meet that need. And so I tried to encourage her, just give it time. And I think it goes to all things. When you're feeling like quitting because it's hard, because it maybe didn't match your expectations, it's not making you as happy as you thought it would, or it's not fulfilling you like you thought it would, or I don't know, 1,000 other things. Don't necessarily give up on it, because so often after you get through the hard seasons is where the really really sweet seasons come.
Right. Yeah. And it really was. Those next few years were very sweet. Just the customer relation. I mean, it was hard saying goodbye, because there were so many sweet, even though they might not be friendships per se, but there was that rapport when certain customers came in. We talked about certain things, and
it was community, it was relationship.
Yeah, it was relationship, and just the time spent and all that, and the continued support, and as I sought to continue to support them by providing the things that they wanted and needed. And so it definitely it's one of those things that, like you said, there were some things at the time that stung, but I would say resoundingly, and again, I think that comes to you choose what you're going to focus on. We could have just focused on the negative and had ourselves spun up and totally missed everything else that was happening around us. And so yeah.
So do we have your friends? Don't quit. I've accepted my fate of being a blind medicine. This is where we are now. I am the
And
light.
I'm in the dark.
She's the darkness. Great. But thank you so much for joining us. Let us know, what about maybe a time you felt like quitting and you didn't? What did you learn? Or, what are you pursuing right now? We'd love to hear from you guys. And in the meantime, again, to do the salesy thing, like, subscribe, follow, share, all of that. Because we just look forward to being able to do lives. That's what we did on Facebook, and we absolutely loved
so
it.
much fun.
It was so much fun. It was our favorite thing every week, was to do these chats, just chatting and coffee and hanging out together, and sometimes not coffee, depending on the week. But we hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. We will see you next week.
Bye.